Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the back to the Valley of the Judged. I caught myself there.
You still fucked it up.
Yes. I'm like Christopher Walken with cue cards.
Yep.
Although whether or not he's doing that to troll is anyone's guess. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, as always, is my good brother here in the temple, the man of 1,000 runes, the CEO of Zadari Enterprises, and the bane of my fucking existence, good brother Xanatrix.
Zadari Enterprises would like to remind you that even the monk can fuck it up.
Yes. However, if at any point you think that I'm a certain level of fuck up, I would like to remind you all of one important thing. I am not the Chicago White Sox.
Low bar.
Yes.
I have a lower bar.
What, the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Even lower. Hasbro.
Fair. I'd like to say I don't mean to keep picking on Hasbro, except that'd be a lie. But they just find new and interesting ways to get in their own damn way. It's like they're their own worst enemy when it comes to success. Of course, if I really wanted to go with the low bar, I could have said, at least I'm not Ubisoft.
That works too.
Yeah. That's an evergreen joke because they'll always find some new and interesting way to fuck up. But we are not here for that. We are here for the grand finale when it comes to our coverage of Flux Fantasy. At least
a grand finale with the beta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the beta. At least for the time being. I do have a feeling that when future updates come along, we'll end up revisiting them. Maybe not in this format, but in a format. Now, Other is the final major section, and it largely covers miscellaneous material that isn't necessarily tied to the GM side of things. We will not cover the GM section, because I rarely cover GM sections in these things. They're always nice to have, but for the purposes of this, there's not a whole lot that can be said.
Yep.
And I should note I was very, very tempted to to invoke the final countdown again, but I don't want to get this video banned in Russia a second time.
Not only that, we don't want to become one-trick ponies.
That is true. I only did it for the 10th anniversary stream because, well, special event.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, for those of you who haven't seen these kind of things, we're going to be going through the other section a bit and then going into our final thoughts on Flux Fantasy as a whole. And, of course, after that, go into the announcements about what is going to be coming down the pipe in the coming weeks. Because just because Flux Fantasy's story ends for now, does not mean that the Valley ends. But the first part of Other is items and shops.
Alrighty. So, starting with the section, we have Get Your Gear, items and shops in Flux Fantasy. In the world of Flux Fantasy, items are your best friends. They're not just cool trinkets to collect, they give you distinct advantages and can swing combat momentum to your favor. But remember, most items don't last forever. You'll need to keep your stockpile well managed and your wallet ready as new and better items come along. Remember that the currency, as we're about to find out once again, is merits. Items are bought with merits, the currency of Fortuna. Here's what you need to know about the items in the game. Each item has a limited number of uses. They come in different rarities. They have different costs. And there are some aura skills that can maybe get you a discount. And they all have effects or cause damage. These are very, very generic things that everybody should know about items from role-playing games since the beginning of time. But then we have shops and shopping. Not all shops are created equal. In the heart of Andromeda, you'll find shops selling common items, while those shady back alley shops might have the rare or even illegal goodies. We have a little tutorial here on the bartering basics. First, you're going to use the perceive action to try and find their weakness, which is a technique basic action check. And then once you know their likes and dislikes, you're going to use an aura check to barter. And if you did get the perception correct, you'd get a +3 bonus to your roll. Every shopkeeper has a different threshold, and some just won't budge on price. They even have a nice little block here with an example shopkeeper. Perception threshold of 8. Their weakness is mentioning great escape artists or becoming a great escape artist, and he might give you a 5% discount, but if you talk about school, you're fucked. Because he's a dropout, and he doesn't like Wolfgang Academy, and he doesn't like bugs, and he doesn't like ink fighters. With that, we also have a little small section here about selling. And they say selling matches match buying prices. Nice. Unless stated otherwise. And your perception skills can also help you get a better deal. And then, of course, there's a section here on stealing, which has serious risks. You're going to get negative karma. And depending on the security, you might get hurt, separated from the party, or paying a pretty hefty fine. The GM decides.
Stop! You violated the law!
Stop! You violated Fortuna's laws. Yep. And then, of course, the last part here about sigil replenishing, where ink fighters can get their ink replenished, usually at a low cost of anything under 5 merits. Most shops have an ink artist that will help with that. I'll leave the next section to you, Monk.
Yep, so then we get to trading cards. This is a very 90s kind of game, so of course that's smack dab in the trading card boom of that era.
Yep.
Uh, what started with Great Escape Artist trading cards is now expanded to Ink Fighter champions, political figures, school mascots, and famous locations. Chris, did you collect baseball cards at any point in your younger years? Or basketball cards? It was the 90s. Just curious. I did too. Mostly to remind myself of better times being a fan of sports in Minnesota.
No one is surprised to hear that I started with Magic the Gathering at 5.
It was funny seeing some of the painting couches about the thing, and then about the various card games around that time, and the dumbfounded look when people actually looked at the cards and like, wait, that's it. But
now this is closer to a pure collectible card game, Dragon, rather than something like Yu-Gi-Oh.
If you want that, Perfect Draw is over there.
Heh. We already did that.
Mm-hmm. But there is a card for every interest, from common ones to rare finds. And some trading cards give you a boost of karma or other advantages. Their uses are generally infinite unless stated otherwise. Gear up, shop smart, shop as smart, and keep an eye out for those rare finds. And then we have a short list of common items, each of them noting their name, the amount of uses, the merits. I believe that's the symbol for merits.
Yes.
And the effect. So we have a standard glow stick. We have Med Plus kits. We have ink syringes, which only cost 12 merits. We have repair kits, which cost 60. So being a clockbot has a lot of advantages, but on the other hand, repairing clockbots, repairing mechanical items, especially if you're an agent, is going to be a bit pricier.
Yep.
See, Karma Pool Recovery Inhaler, which can be used by everyone but Ink Fighters, gives a boost of 5 KP to your pool. Costs 25 merits. The 8 PB noodles. You can heal up with instant noodles.
888 noodles.
Mm-hmm. Only available in 888 shops. Is 888 supposed to be the setting equivalent to 7-Eleven?
That would be good to know.
Let's see, and with uncommon, you have things like the Payback Repellent spray can lower the effects of Payback by 5. Can be sprayed on Tauruses, sigils, and weapons. Why am I thinking of a bug repellent? Like the ones we had to cover ourselves in anytime we went camping? The fish bowls, which we've already talked about. A Gold Star talent sticker, which costs 75 merit. Which makes you feel better for a moment, and you get plus any talent for 1 roll. A merit card, i.e. a credit card, and Fate Candy helps alleviate the symptoms of overclocked syndrome.
Merit card reads more like a debit card.
Yeah, I'd say, a debit card would be more accurate. See, then rare items, things like canvases. I do like that the canvas size here has a bit of an example. So a small canvas is the size of a room. I'm guessing like a bedroom or an apartment or something like that. Medium canvas is the size of a house. Large canvas is the size of a neighborhood. Extra large canvas is the size of a city block. And we have a black market security badge, which can be used to get past locked doors or past security of buildings up to uncommon clearance. A full security badge, and a Taurus, which has no limit until broken, but it is going to be expensive because it's 425 merits. Each extra Taurus reduces Karma power cost by 5 KP. You can have up to 5 Tauruses total.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. See, and then you have a bit more on trading cards. Oh. They can they can be bought, sold, traded, leveraged, and so on. Oh. And it's based on the whole out of game trading cards. It sounds like there are plans on doing some form of trading, some form of in-universe trading card.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and especially since they're planning on doing some trading card stuff for live streams or events,
Yep.
which demonstrates that they understand. The words that come to mind right now are "you can only get Mew through trading." See, card binder. Though, if I wanted to really make a deep cut, I could say that the trading card stuff wouldn't be far removed from Greed Island. No, never mind. That's too much of a stretch. Huh. Apparently, they're planning on a card binder for the OC portal. So it sounds like maybe I'm wrong on this, and I'm pretty sure Chris can correct me on this. There's plans on some sort of character management thing on a website. At least that's the vibe I get from that card binder section. So if that is the case, then I can get brownie points for being right again. But and he said, here's what the 888 noodle shops are. Fortuna's landscape is dotted with fast food chains. Among them, the Lucky 888 noodle shop stands out, not for just its food, but for the mystique that surrounds it. For the mystique that surrounds it. So, in and out. Or I suppose Whataburger down in Texas. It's characterized by flickering neon lights and interiors that, though grimy and inexplicably humid, have an irresistible allure for teens and top college students. Why am I thinking of Super Saiyan down in Florida? And for those that don't know, yes, that is a real place. It's actually really damn good.
I don't know. Why are you thinking that place?
But and as far as we also have a nice little chart for rolling for cards.
The current cards that they have.
Mm-hmm. And then a list of the cards in there, as well as their various effects. I am glad that each of them have their effects. He said, "Lol Panda Express." I will take your word on that, because where I come from, if somebody's looking for a reliable chain of that kind of food, they're not going to Panda Express. They're going to Leon Chin. If you know, you know.
I do know. But I like that each of these is a small perk rather than something huge. At least when looking at these common cards.
And not only that, there's a variety of effects. It would be very easy to just have it be +5 or -5 a given check, but while some of them do lean into that direction, not all of them do.
Although there are 3 cards with the same effect, minimizing the effects of the flaw for 1 turn.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at things like the uncommon cards, things start to get a little more fun, such as player can share a trait with a friend for 1 turn.
Mhm. Or, in fact, two of them have that. And on the rare and ultra rare, one hit wonder, which adds +5 aura to your next roll, is certainly gonna be useful.
Yeah, but rolling it requires a nat 20.
Mhm. Then you have the other maps, which is largely going into the different types of maps. Stuff for city and town, for battle scenarios, and understanding hazards and obstacles.
Yep.
And then mini games, and I'll let you take Karma Kendo.
Okay, well, I will have fun taking the only mini game on the page. Originally cooked up to train Wolfgang Academy students in the art of payback evasion, Karma Kendo has exploded in the popularity far beyond the realm of escape artists. This adrenaline-pumping one-on-one matchup pits 2 Karma users against each other in a battle with straightforward rules and high stakes. The goal: knock your opponent out of the circle by dropping their HP to 3 or below. Don't sweat it, this is just for practice so no one gets seriously hurt. The weapon: in Karma Kendo, combatants wield the sweep, weapon resembling long clock hands that can bend it, oh god, it's crony, into various shapes to execute different moves. These sweep weapons supercharge a player's karma abilities, meaning you won't deplete your karma pool when using them. The moves: inside the ring, you've got 3 options: attack, defend, and signature move. Your opponents will also pick one of these moves, and the combination of your choices determines the outcome. Check out the chart below to see how it all shakes out. I'm guessing this is going to be rock, paper, scissors in a way. Attack uses your basic attack damage if it hits. Defend blocks incoming attacks. And signature move, your ultimate power move, which uses your signature attack damage if it hits. The outcomes are attack versus attack, no one takes damage. Attack versus defend, the defender takes no damage, and the attacker takes half their attack damage in blowback damage. Signature versus defend, the defender takes no damage, and the attacker takes half their attack and blowback damage. Defend versus defend, nobody takes any damage. Signature versus attack, signature beats the attacker, or the person doing the attack. And I'm guessing that the signature user takes no damage. And then signature versus signature, both attacks hit, and everyone takes the damage given. Getting your HP to 3 or below means you're knocked out of the ring and lose the battle. The best out of 3 rounds wins. So grab your sweep, step into the ring, and may the best karma user win.
I just realized what this reminds me of. The duel battles in Suikoden.
I can see that.
Especially during the PS2 era.
Yeah, I can see it.
Which, technically speaking, were rock, paper, scissors, and so is this. But there were varieties of effects. I mean, if it was straight rock, paper, scissors, it'd be a case of one side wins, the other side doesn't. And that's not exactly the case here. And because of the fact that it's done in this way, it's a great way to have little duels, especially since HP doesn't get that high from what we've seen so far. So a few good solid hits will put someone down to 3. When it comes to the sweep,
I already said it. It's fucking crony.
Although I think she would have a bit of a leg advantage against some people in this.
I think she would have more than a leg advantage. She has those ribbons, after all.
Yes.
We look at the ribbon and nothing else.
But by having it in this neutral setup, it does mean that no matter what sort of karmistry you're using, everybody's on somewhat neutral footing.
Yep, because you can't do something like sacrifice your move to do a second attack. Hello, Ink Fighters.
Yeah, because if this was using standard combat rules, Ink Fighters would dominate this.
Yes. Well, and then there's also the fact that you can't do things like you don't use any KP, and I'm guessing that for Ink Fighters you also wouldn't use any sigil power, so you wouldn't have to ink up again afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just me, but I have a feeling that Karma Kendo, putting aside the out of the ring thing and the like, is meant to replicate those dueling moments in various anime, where it's focused on being this particular one-on-one fight, as opposed to a skirmish.
It seems like it to me.
It's also a good way to visit one particular motif that some people really fucking hate, but I do not have the same level of hatred for. Tournament arc.
Tournament arcs used well are really good.
I mean, it's not like New Japan does a shitload of tournaments every year or something. One of them being so big it gets covered by mainstream newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
For context for those who do not follow Puroresu, New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is the largest pro wrestling promotion in Japan, does multiple tournaments throughout the calendar year, and they're pretty consistent on when they do them. At the start of the year, shortly after the show at the Big Egg, the Wrestle Kingdom show, is the New Japan Cup, which usually culminates at Sakura Genesis. After that, sometimes, I think a little bit after that, is the Best of the Super Junior tournament, which is obviously focused on the junior heavyweights.
Yep.
After that is the big one, the G1 Climax, which is a long, grueling round-robin tournament of about 20 people, divided into A block and B block. Pinfall or submission gets you 2 points. Draws get both sides 1 point. DQs get you no points. And when I say grueling, I'm talking you're doing matches for like 2 months straight.
Well, it's a giant tournament, of course.
Yeah.
They gotta stretch it out just like an anime would.
Yeah, and it's a round robin tournament, so everybody fights everybody within the given blocks.
Yep.
And of course, at the tail end of the year, just before the Tokyo Dome show, is World Tag League, which obviously is all about tag teams. And this sort of tournament fixation is in other promotions. I know that All Japan had, either All Japan or Noah had Champion Carnival. I think it was All Japan that had it. Don't quote me on that. And there's been other tournaments and the like, such as the Super J Cup. Not what you're thinking. Get your head up.
It's not what I'm not thinking that, but I'm sure there are others who might be.
Yeah, for those who are, get your head out of the gutter and return to the game. I cannot take some of you anywhere, I swear. And some of you is like, if you don't stop, I'm turning this car around. We're going back to Winnipeg.
Ugh.
But I've stated that the use of tournament arcs in anime is something that gets overhated. I think the reason why it gets used so often is it's a reliable way to introduce a bunch of characters and have a bunch of fights that don't require too much in the way of excessive plotting to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a bunch of the supporting cast have their own little mini arcs. And obviously, and if you want to yell at anybody for having tournament arcs, there's two things you can yell at. One of them is the film that's known by a bunch of names, but I've always referred to it as Master of the Flying Guillotine, which is kind of the patient zero for one story arc that you see a lot in fighting games of, I'm going to organize a tournament to lure out this one person. Oh. The other is the numerous times that the Tenkaichi Budokai tournament showed up in the original Dragon Ball.
I think it was like 4 times total, wasn't it?
Yeah. And each time felt, for lack of a better term, like a season finale.
Something like that.
Mm. And eventually a series finale, since the last one involved King Piccolo, or rather Piccolo Jr.
Evil King Piccolo.
Mm-hmm. But when it comes to it, is it arguable that it gets overused? I guess, but if something's reliable, you're gonna use it. And
Yeah.
we've seen what happens when somebody is like, "Oh, this thing is overused. I'm gonna do the complete opposite," and then they create a whole new batch of problems. And then end up doing nobody any favors. I think you and I have seen that plenty of times where somebody's like, "Oh, this whole I don't want to do D20. That die system is too predictable. I'm gonna do a completely different die system," and then they hadn't thought through how they were gonna do that. But I'll let you all in on a little secret that Zan and I have assessed in the past. The particular bell curve debate is largely bullshit.
It's also largely pointless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people debate about what the best bell curve when it comes to die resolution is, going into probabilities and going into way too much math, even for me. And ultimately, the differences between the different bell curves are too minuscule to actually be worth it.
There is a term for this in a specific type of mathematics I hate, and the term is not statistically significant.
Mm-hmm.
The differences between the bell curves are not statistically significant. Not to mention the fact that the bell curve should not fucking matter. Frankly, if you're worried about your dice resolution rather than worried about how your fucking game works, you're doing it ass backwards. Ignore dice, determine your core concept, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. But with that said, I think this is as good a time as any to first go into what we thought of the other. And really, the only thing I'd add to that is possibly put in a random shopkeep generator chart.
Yeah, I think a nice little generation or so, or again, as we always talk about when we talk about the guidance thing, a set of parameters that lets us know the upper and lower bound, so that way we know what we're working with it.
I mean, having only one example shopkeep for this beta, that's perfectly fine. But I think as things further develop, a few more examples should be given of both the legal kind of shopkeep, the barely legal kind of shopkeep, and the very illegal kind of shopkeep. At a minimum, as well as the reason why I suggested a random shopkeep generator is as a way to allow GMs to come up with one on the fly when they really need it. Because there's going to be those kind of situations, especially since it's very clear, and this is a good lead into our final thoughts. Resource management is a big damn deal within this game. Not in the same way as say a diceless game like Amber, or even the multiple resources that you have to track in something like, say, the Cipher system. But it is a significant thing that you have to track within this game. Not just your currency, but also managing karma to make sure you don't overspend. Managing the uses of your items to make sure that you are properly supplied. Managing your karma to make sure you don't get screwed over. Like, resource management is a big deal. I wouldn't call it micromanaging, but it is a case where measuring the risk and rewards of your resources is a key part of the mechanics. And you and I love our risk reward systems.
Yes.
And I do want to make clear one thing, because I've seen some people misconstrue this. Our love for risk reward does not necessitate gambling or gambling mechanics in games, but more
it's a tactical choice.
Mm-hmm.
You could choose to play things a little more conservatively, and in so doing, you're more consistent, but not necessarily more bombastic or excessively effective. Or you can choose to take the risk, and while with the risk comes a risk of being less effective in that moment, it also comes with the potential reward of being more effective overall.
Yeah, I will use. There's two examples I will use in other games. One of them is the conservative and reckless dichotomy that was in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition. When it came to generating your die pool, you could lean more in the conservative end of things or the reckless end of things.
Yep. Conservative
was described as low risk, low reward. Reckless is high risk, high reward. I.e., the results on the conservative dice work, but you're not going to get a whole lot out of. Whereas the reckless, a lot of the best and worst results you can roll are on those dice. And this applies just as much when it came to casting. You could cast conservatively or you could cast recklessly. And since this is Warhammer and the way magic works in Warhammer, casting recklessly can certainly be powerful, but you are really pushing your luck with it.
You're asking for trouble.
Yes.
Unless you've got some really nice skills or some really high attributes, casting conservatively was usually your choice for like the first half of character development.
I remember Pancreas No Work describing magic use in Warhammer as like handling nuclear material.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, even in Vermintide, you have that heat mechanic if you play a Bright Wizard, where the more casting you do, the more you heat up. If you heat up too much, you go boom.
Yep.
Because, well, fire without and fire within. And unfortunately, you are not a certain Mormon in the desert.
That's I don't think anybody's gonna get that joke, Monk.
Look, we can't expect God to do all the work.
This is also true.
But I will also note there is one significant asterisk that I do have to put on regarding the game, and that ties into the advanced uses of karmistry. I really do think that is going to be crucial to having the different types and subtypes of karmistry differentiate from one another, which is going to be a necessity. Because right now, the way that we have them is nice, but it needs more in order to make them unique from each other. Ideally, I feel that you should be able to have two, say, escape artists who do not use karmistry exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And with the primary and secondary types, there is the leaning to that, but I need to see how it actually works, and we don't have that yet.
Yeah. Until we have more information, we can't really assess more than what we have.
Now, as far as one of the selling points when I first came across Flux Fantasy, which led to the chain of events to where we are now, was that it billed itself as being able to create your OC. I would say for the most part, it does handle that very well. If there's any bit of advice I can give to allow for that further, possibly a section in the GM side of things about how to utilize the mechanics here in other settings that aren't directly tied to Karmistry.
Mm-hmm.
Because if somebody wanted to use this to make a Naruto OC, well, Naruto doesn't really have the equivalent of payback, so you would need to. So putting in some advice on how to do something in that same vibe, but not necessarily the same rules as payback, I think would be something to pursue. And I'm not saying it has to be done immediately, but it's something to consider if that whole play as your OC is really going to be a thing present.
Yeah.
But in terms of the core mechanics, it's pretty straightforward. We do have a decent amount of navigation. I do think that in a further update, some of the subsections that we saw in the various parts should get their own bookmarks. But I can understand them not being in this because, again, it's a beta.
Mm.
But that's more or less the gist that I have on things. What's your thoughts so far with Flux Fantasy?
So, it's very clear that the world is taken into very high account, considering that this is based off of the lore and story of the comics that Chris has been making. It has a very clear sense of identity, which is good. We like to see that the core concept is held strongly, so that way everything builds off of it, and it is going to make a solid game mechanically. This is a beta, so the lack of detail for certain things is understandable and is not something that I'm going to knock it for. I am honestly looking forward to more. That's the way I see it. But the only other thing I want to suggest is, as always, especially with something this unfinished at this time, more guidance is always good. If you are going to err on the side of anything, it is err on the side of more guidance, never less. And then, of course, as you pointed out, the differentiation between the 4 different types of Karmistry user you can be: escape artists, sync fighters, secret agents, and clockbots. A little bit more specificity on how they're differentiated, not just mechanically.
Not just that, but the specialization as well.
Yeah. All of that needs to be very clear on how it's different and what sort of way it will, what unique advantages it will give you and disadvantages. That way you know exactly how your character is going to be there.
Mm-hmm. And as far as any other thing, now I'm well aware about the big reason why I said that some of the subsections within each part should get their own bookmarks is because there's a lot within each part, each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
which is why segmenting this for our series was kind of tricky. Something that I would suggest as well is think. I know that there was that sample adventure. Part of me thinks that might be better served in its own PDF rather than being crammed into the book per se, especially since it'll make it a lot easier to distribute for things like Free RPG Day.
Yeah.
And beyond that, this was I wouldn't be surprised if the full book gets close to 300 as far as page count goes.
I could see that.
And I do think that the philosophy that was hinted at early on is something that should be a watchword in the same way that our 3 pillars are the watchword we have for FF Legend.
Absolutely.
Now, as far as whether or not we'd end up doing a follow-up season of Valley of the Judged when updates come along for it, probably not. In all likelihood, those would be things I would do. I would have some back and forth with Zan, and then do a impressions video. Because those updates aren't gonna be big enough to warrant a Valley of the Judge series.
Exactly.
You know, it'd be like if we went back and did a Valley of the Judge on Anima, which I'm not doing ever.
Let's not and say we didn't.
I may consider redoing that review of Anima, but I'm not if only because I think there was a lot of stuff that I skimmed past that I shouldn't have. But I'm not doing a full on Valley on Anima.
Yeah.
But if I did that and then I get a hold of an English translation of some of the changes that were in Core Exet, the version of the core book we didn't get, even though we got expansions that reference Core Exet, figure that out. I would do what I ended up doing anyways, and just doing a short video covering those changes and how I thought that impacted the overall package. I still put them in the same playlist, kind of like the stuff we did after we did the core stuff for Heavens and Heresies. Which I still stand by everything that we did in that, although some of the stuff is a little bit out of date. But there's only so much I can do as a small operation. I don't want a repeat of what happened with Wrath and Glory, where I ended up jumping the gun too quickly. For context, Wrath and Glory is the Warhammer 40k RPG by one of them by Cubicle 7. The original version I had covered was the one that was done by Ulysses Spiel. Then when Cubicle 7 took over, I figured, okay, it's just going to be a cleaned up version. It was not just a cleaned up version, and I had to scramble.
Yep.
But with that in mind, as far as where I would rate Flux Fantasy in its current state in my grading system, I really, really want to go recommended, but without the advanced rules set up, I can't go any higher than playable right now.
Yeah, and that's understandable.
And I know some people might be aghast at that, but keep in mind, My review metric is not the same as a numerical scoring system. It is a set of broad tiers. Playable just means there's gonna be some extra legwork if someone wanted to do a long-term campaign. Since obviously there's a lot of info that we don't have, like how level rewards are going to be working out, as well as the advanced stuff. Once that comes out, I may end up bumping it up, but I can only cover what I've got in front of me. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Well, and the big thing is, it doesn't matter how much we personally like the person who made the game, or personally like what we see in the game. Your whole system has always been as much as you like it, if the mechanics are only at such a point, you can only recommend it with so many asterisks.
Yeah. My review metric has always been about who I'm willing to recommend something to in good conscience, not about how much I like or dislike, because whether I like or dislike a work is gonna largely be irrelevant when someone's picking it up, because there's so many different moving parts when it comes to these sort of games.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's that many moving parts, what I could say a given game is the drizzling shits, and I didn't like it, but there are still gonna be people who have a different approach. Now, as far as the kind of folk I would recommend Flux Fantasy, it would be folks who want something that leans into a shonen battle manga, but some of the current more ubiquitous entries do not satisfy that itch.
Yeah.
This is for people who want to do a tabletop version of whichever shonen battle manga they happen to be fans of. Whether it be older ones or newer ones, that principle is still the same, and this very much does lean into shonen battle manga.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, as far as who I would not recommend this to, Grogs. And again, Grogs don't like anything.
I was about to say, isn't our recommendation criteria kind of one of them, like, only people who aren't going to insist on changing this into a clone of yet another of the same game they've played for 25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, not recommending it to Grogs is kind of built in, I think.
I would also say that anyone who has a more simulationist attitude towards their game preferences is not going to enjoy Flux Fantasy.
Maybe.
Like, this is not going to be a game that is going to be about tracking how many 5-foot lengths of rope you have.
About whether that arrow you shot just now broke or not.
Mm-hmm. If you want that, Torchbreaker's that way.
And there are games that do it really well.
Mm-hmm. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that one game can work for everything.
He's going to continue saying that, just so you know.
Well, it's the one line in the Usual Suspects that didn't suck.
Kaiser Soze, monk. Kaiser Soze.
Yeah, the devil who totally isn't the devil, except he is.
Yep, I know. But ultimately, the I think I can give this beta at least the highest praise I have, which is I want to see more. I am itching to see more.
And so
And
am I.
That's a good place for it to be.
Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, that is going to close the book for now on Flux Fantasy. There's a lot of stuff that we did skim over, and for those who are curious, I do recommend going through the beta yourself. But obviously, that does not mean the end of the Valley of the Judge, because we'll be continuing onward with our next projects. So next week is going to be our requisite between season one shot. We are looking at Wasure no Monogatari. And I screwed up the wording on that. My apologies. It is going. Mm-hmm. And that is not a quick start because the page count is light enough that we can do that as a one shot.
Yep.
And after that, we are going to be tackling the robotic age. And before we went live tonight, I double-checked on DriveThruRPG to make sure that both games are purchasable there, because I have started to institute a rule. If it is not available for purchase, we are not going to cover it.
That's to make sure that people can get a hold of it.
Mm-hmm. There have been a few games, even in the last month, where I had it set up, but then I looked at, and it was available at one point, but something changed and it no longer was. And obviously, I want people to go out and actually try different games. Now, games that are out of print that's a whole other matter, like when I did TSR month. But even in those situations, I'm still going to recommend people spiritual successors to certain things. Just as an example, if somebody wants to do Marvel Phase Rip, I'm just gonna say go grab Ascendant. If somebody wants to do something akin to Top Secret, I'd say go grab Top Secret New World Order, or go grab Covert Ops. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Probably more the latter, because that's still using a D100 system, whereas New World Order uses a rule of 13 for its approach. They're both good games, they're just different approaches. And I'm aware of the conundrums that happened with new TSR. That's a issue I do not have any interest in going into. But that is going to be what we've got planned for the next couple weeks. Now, that being said, tomorrow, because of recent events and a few other things, we will not be doing the Cloister of the Dice. Instead, there's a couple interviews I'm going to be doing. One of them at 3 p.m. and one of them at 8 p.m. The latter is not going to be on this channel. That is going to be on the channel of Eric Loy, who's interviewing me. He does a lot of interviews with indie VTubers, and I put my name in the hat, and he reached out back. We're going to have that set up, so that's going to be pretty fun. That being said, Geek Watch will return on Sunday the 13th. I kind of wish there was a Friday the 13th in October this year, so I could call it a real nightmare before Christmas. And of course, I will still be doing the game streams Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. It's not going to be Reynatus. It's going to be something different. I haven't fully decided what the video game in question is going to be. I will state this. It is not going to be an action RPG. I don't feel like double dipping.
Yeah.
Also because I know a friend of mine would be like, you should do FF16. I'm like, I'm not. That is an action RPG. I'm not doing. I'm not doing that. Nothing against the game. It's just I want to try and not do the same genre back to back.
Not to mention the fact that some of these games you may not want to play on stream either. You may just want to have that experience to yourself.
That is also a distinct possibility. Although I will note it may not be it may be either Saturday or Sunday, but I am strongly considering doing another demo grab bag. I just have to come up with a new dumbass name for it.
I mean, you've been doing Die Hard jokes this entire time, right?
Yes.
You're up to what?
Last one was 4.
So you're at number 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. I think there's been 5 Die Hard films. There has. So you can always go with a good day to grab harder.
Yeah. And before anyone says phrasing, I know exactly what I said.
And so do I.
Yeah. But that will do it. And I do hope some of you who've stopped by during our run with Flux Fantasy continue to enjoy the particular brands of tomfoolery or shenanigans that happen in this temple.
Chicanery. I like that word too.
Yep. And we will see you all again for what we've got coming down the pipe in the future. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.